minute later, tens of thousands of meters above the Earth. A tear ripped open in space, and Zhang Yi emerged somewhat distressed from the alternate dimension, bringing Luozhua and Zhugo with him. They found themselves within the dome's rock layers, yet even there, the terrifying pressure remained palpable. The explosions weren't a single event but a series of successive detonations. The shock waves that followed could pierce through the rock layers. In the instant of the blast, Zhang Yi pulled them into his own dimensional space. A single minute would subject anyone to months of agony, the torment of body and mind out of sync. But for survival, it was absolutely worth it. Luozhua stared at Zhang Yi, his voice trembling with shock. Is this the legendary Reaper of Love? Zhang Yi looked at the two brothers, now separated from their merged state. This isn't the time for talk. We must leave immediately. From this day forward, the nation of Nash shall cease to exist. The people of Nash Kingdom had been utterly annihilated by them. Now, after the explosions of the Reaper of Love, the city itself lay completely destroyed. Those who came searching afterward would likely find only a city of shattered glass. The greatest tragedy was that Prince Anlet would be utterly obliterated in the blast. Even a bishop-level supernatural being with 30,000 points of ability index couldn't withstand such force. His very origin would dissipate in the explosion. Though tragic, eliminating him finally resolved a potential threat to Huashu Kingdom. Zhang Yi led everyone upward without pause. The radiation levels here were too high. Without the highest level combat suits and submarine dragon armor, even those not at the explosion's epicenter would suffer unimaginable radiation damage afterward. Soon, they returned to the top of the Great Snow Mountain. Zhang Yi exhaled a long breath of relief. This ordeal had finally reached its conclusion. Luozhua and Zhugo now stood ragged, their bodies bearing the full brunt of the injuries sustained during their fusion. Luozhua and Zhugo sat cross-legged in the snow. They exchanged a knowing smile before gazing silently at the distant Sangha temple, still engulfed in flames. Zhang Yi stretched lazily, then released the others from the shadow space, allowing them to relax. Emerging, they all gasped for breath, their faces radiant with the joy of having survived. Fatty Su knelt on the ground, cupping snow in his hands as he cheered joyfully. Woohoo! Another day alive! Even the merciless private soldiers knelt on the snow, weeping and laughing as they held handfuls of it. This subterranean journey had lasted roughly half a month. Leaving the familiar surface world for the terrifying underground had been an immense test of their mental fortitude. Especially during the battles against those formidable giants, witnessing their comrades devoured like snacks had plunged them into despair. Barring any surprises, many of the private soldiers would likely develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Zhang Yi approached Luozhua and Zhugo, his gaze settling on Zhugo. Sangha Temple was destroyed. Did you see it? Zhugo lowered his eyes and thought for a moment, then offered only a faint smile. The temple exists in the mortal world. He placed a hand over his chest. But the Buddha resides within the heart. Zhang Yi chuckled, folding his arms. You seem to take it quite well. Zhugo merely replied calmly, the true demon has been vanquished. From now on, the snowy plateau will no longer face its threat. Thus, Sangha Temple has fulfilled its purpose. Whether it continues to exist or not, what does it matter? The Sangha Temple existed solely to gather the faith energy of Tantric Buddhists, providing power for this once-in-a-millennium battle. Upon realizing this, Zhang Yi couldn't help but ask curiously, now, may I ask you something? Does Tantra truly believe in reincarnation? And what exactly is this so-called power of faith? Luozhua shook his head. I don't know either, but these legends have always persisted. He glanced at Zhugo, perhaps he knows more, having read so many books. Zhugo pressed his palms together and said calmly, this world has never known reincarnation, nor any such thing as the power of faith. He looked at Zhang Yi and pointed meaningfully at his chest. What exists, he said, is only the human heart. Zhang Yi exhaled deeply. I really hate dealing with you monks. You're always speaking in riddles. Zhugo merely smiled and spread his hands. This is all I know. Perhaps you can find answers elsewhere. Zhang Yi's eyebrows shot up as he suddenly remembered his purpose for coming to the southwest region. Pa Jigsaw had promised him that once matters were settled, he would give him the original manuscript of the Epic of King Geezer, treasured by his family. Zhang Yi folded his arms, intending to seek out Pa Jigsaw. So he bid farewell to Zhugo and Luozhua. If fate permits, we shall meet again. The snowy plateau was now in disarray due to the resistance army movement. He had no desire to get entangled in this mess, so he planned to leave immediately after obtaining the original manuscript of the Epic of King Geezer. Sir, please wait. I have an unreasonable request. Zhugo suddenly called out to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi turned to face him. What else is there? Zhugo rose to his feet, pressed his palms together, and bowed deeply to Zhang Yi. I hope you would allow me to see that young lady once more. The young lady he referred to could only be Lu Ruyan. Zhang Yi considered this, then shook his head. I know you resent her for deceiving you, but I'm afraid she's under my protection. If you have any issues, take them up with me, don't trouble her. Hearing this, Zhugo smiled and shook his head. His gaze remained earnest as he replied, You misunderstand, sir, I seek no vengeance. I merely wish to discuss certain matters with her. Zhang Yi stared intently at Zhugo for a full 5 seconds. Only after confirming no murderous intent flickered in the man's eyes did he speak. All right. I can ask her about it. He stepped aside and motioned for Mu Yan to bring Lu Ruyan out. Then he relayed Zhugo's request to Lu Ruyan. He wants to see you. Zhang Yi rubbed his nose. You know, he was just a pure-hearted rookie before. So naturally, he has some special feelings for you. This monk isn't a bad guy, just a bit dim-witted. He wants to talk with you. If you don't want to, you can refuse. Hearing this, Lu Ruyan looked at Zhang Yi with a complex expression, then shifted her gaze to Zhugo, who stood silently waiting for her answer in the snow. She bit her lip, pondering for a long moment before lifting her head to meet Zhang Yi's gaze earnestly. I'm willing to talk with him. Zhang Yi crossed his arms. He himself wasn't sure what kind of relationship existed between these two. A living Buddha who had broken his vows, a woman who had navigated the world of pleasure, ordinary people could scarcely fathom their innermost thoughts. Zhang Yi nodded, then stepped aside to make way as Lu Ruyan walked toward Zhugo. The two stood in the snow, conversing for a very long time. The others instinctively kept their distance, yet watched them with curious eyes. Still, everyone knew Zhugo would never harm Lu Ruyan. Zhang Yi folded his arms, watching the two figures in the distance. He saw Zhugo's face adorned with a constant gentle smile, while Lu Ruyan alternated between tears and laughter. After a while, Zhugo approached Zhang Yi, this time bowing even lower. Lord Chaos, may I request that you allow Miss Lu to remain in the snowy region? Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. You wish to keep her? In what capacity? Do not forget, you are the undertaker of the Tantra, a monk. How can a monk have a lover? Zhugo gazed at Zhang Yi, smiling dreamily. The undertaker is dead. Before you stands only the son of a shepherd. A great transformation was already underway on the snowy plateau. With Sangha temple overthrown, perhaps the people no longer needed an undertaker. His very existence would only stir unrest. The people wished to keep the undertaker in their hearts, not as a lofty presence in the moral world. Zhang Yi asked, if she chooses to stay, I naturally have no objection. Lu Ruyan approached, her eyes brimming with emotion as she looked at Zhang Yi. Mr. Chaos, thank you for granting me redemption and liberation. Zhang Yi said, the path is one you chose yourself. I promised you that after you helped me with this favor, I would repay you. So I agree to let you stay here. But, have you truly thought this through? Zhang Yi's gaze toward Lu Ruyan held a hint of doubt. Would a woman who'd spent years in the world of pleasure truly choose to stay by someone's side for love? Or was it because of Zhugo's power that she sought a mighty tree to shelter her? Lu Ruyan smiled gracefully. He makes me feel valued. Unlike any man I've met before, he alone, even knowing my true nature, still treats me with the affection reserved for an ordinary woman. Zhang Yi scratched his nose. Well then, stay. Lu Rian bowed deeply in gratitude. She smiled. Some have gained the Demon Kingdom treasures they coveted. Others have found a brothel woman seeking redemption. Zhang Yi crossed his arms, chuckling in response. Perhaps to him, you are the most precious treasure of all. His gaze signaled toward the undertaker nearby. The man watched this way, waiting for Lu Rian to return. We both have bright futures ahead, don't we? Lu Rian smiled. She took her leave from Zhang Yi, then turned and walked toward the undertaker. Soon after, the two walked hand in hand, oblivious to others, leaving the great snow mountains. From this day forward, the world would know no undertaker, only Zhuge. As for the new ruler of the snowy plateau, Zhang Yi looked at Luozhua. Congratulations. You've gained everything you desired. But now you'll have to clean up the mess left behind in the snowy plateau. Good luck with that. Luozhua hurriedly replied, Lord Chaos, we'll still need your assistance in the future. A meaningful smile spread across Zhang Yi's face as he rubbed his fingers together. Luozhua's face filled with confusion. What does this mean? Zhang Yi replied, I can help, but you'll have to pay for it. Luozhua looked utterly bewildered, clearly not yet understanding Zhang Yi's character. Zhang Yi laughed heartily as he led Liang Yu and the others down the Great Snow Mountain. Zhang Yi's first stop after descending the mountain was naturally the Paji residence, seeking Pa Jigsaw to reclaim the original manuscript of the Epic of King Geezer. But upon arriving at the Paji home, the scene that greeted him sent a sharp pang of pain through his head. The Paji household no longer existed. The resistance army and serfs now occupied the Pennsylvania G estate, jubilantly ransacking every resource within. The once magnificent courtyard lay plundered bare. People cheerfully moved into the former master's residence, grain was seized, and frozen beef and mutton had long been dragged out of cold storage for open-air barbecues. They hadn't had a proper meal in far too long. Now that they could finally reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs, how could they not be thrilled? But if this chaos continued much longer, countless more lives would surely be lost. Still, Zhang Yi didn't care about leaving these matters to the locals to manage. His concern was, where was Pa Jigsaw? Zhang Yi scanned his surroundings, grabbing a resistance army to interrogate. Where is Pa Jigsaw? Is he dead? The resistance army had previously seen Zhang Yi at the base. Upon recognizing him, he immediately stood at attention. Honorable sir. You seek Pa Jigsaw? He is over there. The resistance army pointed toward the distant sky. Zhang Yi turned his head to look and saw a massive flagpole standing over 100 meters tall. At the very top of the pole hung a large, mangled mass of flesh. Blood dripped down from the rotting flesh, staining the upper half of the flagpole crimson. That's Pa Jigsaw. The resistance army bared its teeth, its eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of vengeance. We killed him. But letting him die was too easy. So we took his skull to make a piss pot, skinned him to make a drum. Then we hung him up for all to see his misery daily, to ease the resentment of years of oppression. Zhang Yi examined it closely and nodded. It is indeed him. Though the man's face was indistinct, finding another individual of such extreme obesity on the snowy plateau would be exceedingly difficult. Zhang Yi frowned. He felt no sorrow over Pa Jigsaw's death, but the original copy of the Epic of King Geezer would now require far more effort to locate. Zhang Yi had no choice but to seek out Luozhua again, demanding his assistance in retrieving the original manuscript from the Paji family and handing it over. Luozhua readily agreed, immediately dispatching numerous soldiers to aid in the search. For the next few days, Zhang Yi and his companions stayed in Sarah City, awaiting results. Yet, despite digging up every inch of ground, they found no trace of the hidden original manuscript of the Epic of King Geezer. Until one night, a figure arrived at Zhang Yi's lodgings. In the deep of night, a towering figure like an iron pillar approached Zhang Yi's door. He set down a heavy chest and then vanished into the darkness. Zhang Yi stepped into the courtyard to examine the chest. He recognized the visitor's identity. It was Solange, the personal bodyguard of Pa Jigsaw. Zhang Yi cautiously opened the chest. Sure enough, inside lay neatly stacked scrolls of human skin scrolls. Zhang Yi smiled. That fellow. At least he kept his word. At the snowy region's border, Pa Jigsaw sat in the back seat of a large snowmobile, devouring a roasted chicken with large bites. Solange drove the vehicle, heading toward the Xinjiang region. Master, are we simply leaving like this? With Lord Chaos's backing, you could become the snowy region's ruler. Solange spoke up. Pa Jigsaw took a huge bite of chicken, chewing and smiling as he replied, forget it. That seat is too hot to sit on. Without the strength of a top-tier powerhouse, sitting there would mean certain death sooner or later. He crossed his legs, leaning back leisurely against the plush leather sofa. I already possess many beautiful wives and concubines, along with untold wealth. There's no need to fight them for more. Let the name Pa Jigsaw vanish along with the death of that substitute. The matters in the southwest region have been temporarily resolved. Numerous minor tasks remain, all left for Luo Zhuo and his team to handle. Zhang Yi declined their pleas to stay, choosing instead to depart with his companions. Their journey through the southwest region yielded substantial gains. Zhang Yi acquired a formidable weapon, the sword in the tree, along with 2 epsilon-level origins. Additionally, he obtained another the Source of God, capable of forging another potential epsilon-level mutant. This added a measure of reassurance to his heart. Yet, a sense of crisis remained ever present. His strength was still insufficient. At the very least, he was no match for those mysterious underground civilizations. Even Prince Anlet, who had only recently ascended to the bishop tier, had nearly overwhelmed him. Not to mention the even more oppressive Hades Gatekeeper and the enigmatic White Dragon. The car drove back slowly. Zhang Yi didn't use his space shuffle ability to take them directly back to Tianhai City. After the fierce battle, his body and mind were somewhat weary, so he wanted to relax by enjoying the scenery along the way. Since they were out for a rare trip, everyone might as well treat it as a side excursion, a pleasant experience. As for Rose, the young girl he'd brought back from Nash Kingdom, Zhang Yi kept her by his side. With the entire kingdom now destroyed, she was its sole survivor. He hoped to glean intelligence about Nash Kingdom from her. Meanwhile, Yang Xinxin immersed herself without pause in deciphering ancient texts. The complete epic of King Geezer spans tens of millions of characters. Once translated, it would require meticulous unraveling. This epic chronicle, a later-era tribute to the heroic King Geezer, interweaves mythical tales with the king's life story. However, as a family of historians, the Paji clan recorded events closer to reality, including some little-known secrets. What Zhang Yi found most intriguing was the essence of reincarnation in Tantra and the origins of the mysterious underground civilization. Yet after his journey to the Demon Kingdom, he found himself somewhat disappointed. In truth, the so-called inhabitants of the Demon Kingdom were humans transformed by the power of the Three-Eyed Clan. It was possible even the people of the Demon Kingdom had little opportunity for direct contact with the Three-Eyed Clan. This intelligence had been obtained through the meticulous analysis of documents acquired from the Demon Kingdom. Not long after, Zhang Yi and his companions returned to Tianhai City. Though they had been gone only a month, it felt like an eternity to Zhang Yi and his companions. The events that unfolded during that time were incredibly complex, bordering on bewildering. They rushed straight home, where Frog leaped out excitedly to greet them. Ribbit. Wah, my good friends, you're finally back. While you were gone, I was nearly bored enough to hibernate. The frog hopped over and gave Zhang Yi a bear hug. Zhang Yi patted its back and asked with a smile, "How are your earth centipedes doing?" The frog proudly patted its chest, "Don't worry. I'm a pro at raising bugs. They're all plump and healthy now. If any got out of line, I just ate them. Guaranteed only the tame, top-quality ones are left." Later, when Zhang Yi actually went to check on the earth centipede, he almost didn't recognize them. The once slender, bamboo-jointed earth centipedes had been fattened up by the frog until they resembled silkworms, so plump they could only crawl around the farm in their pupae. Good heavens, they'd all turned into pupae. Zhang Yi rubbed his forehead. Well, that's fine. We only need them to provide primordial substances. They don't actually need to be strong fighters. After everyone returned, Zhou Haimei and Yang Xia immediately prepared a lavish feast, and the group celebrated heartily. Fatty Su, like a treasure hunter, pulled out the notebook given to him by the three-eyed clan sage before his death. Though called a notebook, it towered over Fatty Su himself. Boss, this was given to me by a highly knowledgeable elder of the three-eyed clan. I suspect it contains crucial documents about their race. Take it and study it thoroughly. Zhang Yi glanced at it and said, let me have a good look. He laid the heavy tome flat on the ground. It must have weighed at least a few 100 pounds. Without daily training, he wouldn't have been able to lift it. Zhang Yi wondered what material it was made of. But when he opened it, the pages were filled with characters he couldn't decipher. Guess I'll just keep this and work on deciphering it later. Zhang Yi shook his head. He glanced at Rose, who stood nearby looking timid. Rose blinked a couple of times and murmured, it seems. There are some parts one can understand, but others I don't quite get. As a human from the Nash Kingdom, essentially classified as pets or food, her literacy was severely lacking. Lu Karen, however, approached, carefully examined the stone slate's material, and then said very earnestly to Zhang Yi, Brother Zhang Yi, this stone slate's material is incredibly ancient. It must possess an extremely long history. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow curiously. Oh? Is that so? Fatty Su couldn't help but interject, of course stones have a long history. Aren't they billions of years old? Lu Karen chuckled at Fatty Su's remark. Not at all. She explained to the group, even stones have degrees of age. Impurities that have settled underground long enough can form new stones. She pointed at the mysterious stone slate. As for this stone slate, I could tell at a glance it's endured at least millions of years. Being a top-tier expert in materials research, her words held undeniable authority. Zhang Yi stroked his chin before turning to Yang Xinxin. Xinxin, you'll be busy for the next period of time. You need to decipher all the materials we brought back from the southwest region. There are 3 primary research materials. First, the original manuscript of the Epic of King Geezer. This is the simplest, as it can be machine translated and then meticulously deconstructed. Second, historical records of the Demon Kingdom. This is slightly more troublesome but won't consume excessive time. After all, the Demon Kingdom also originated from the transformation of the Snowy Plateau's inhabitants. Those historical records span at most a few thousand years, written in ancient Tantric Sanskrit. Third, this presents some difficulty. That is the notebook Fatty Su obtained from the sage, along with the mysterious ancient stone slate within it. Excitement flashed in Yang Xinxin's eyes, the thrill of peering into the secrets of ancient times. Rest assured, brother. Leave all this to me. After returning from the southwest region, Zhang Yi felt only a slight weariness in body and mind. After all, he had endured a grueling battle and needed proper rest. But upon arriving back in Tianhai City, all such concerns vanished. No matter how cold and cruel the outside world might be, his sanctuary remained eternally spring-like, warm and comfortable. Lying on the plush sofa, he reveled in the dual massage from Zhou Kir and Yang Xia, their 4 hands working in unison to soothe every tense muscle. The sensation was utterly intoxicating. For the next few days, he set aside all other matters, focusing solely on savoring life. During this time, however, Zhu Jing reached out via communication device, inquiring about the events in the southwest region. Zhang Yi didn't hold much back, recounting the general sequence of events. Upon hearing this, Zhu Jing's tone turned slightly reproachful. Zhang Yi, we're old friends. You're now the top combat power in the Jiangnan region. Why didn't you inform me when something like this happened? Zhang Yi smiled. If you'd appeared in the southwest region's territory, who knows what trouble you'd have stirred up. Don't forget, the 6 major regions aren't supposed to interfere with each other. There was one more thing he didn't say, though it was his truest thought. In direct operations, the Jiangnan region could only offer him 2 things, intelligence and the Reaper of Love. As for combat strength? Sorry, but any number of mutants below Epsilon meant absolutely nothing to him. Having ascended to the level of a black chariot, Zhang Yi could effortlessly wipe out entire squads of captain-level mutants. I won't dwell on that. But did you manage to secure any of the Source of God over there? At this mention, Zhu Zheng's tone grew noticeably eager. Zhang Yi's lips curved into a wider smile. What are you getting at? Multiple factions were involved this time, and we faced the formidable presence of the subterranean civilization. Even the Reaper of Love was deployed. Do you really think I had a chance to get my hands on the Source of God? Zhu Zheng let out a soft sigh. True enough. That sort of thing isn't exactly commonplace. This exchange yielded little useful intelligence for Zhu Zheng. He slowly closed the communicator, leaning back in his chair with a serious expression. The pale sunlight streaming through the window cast a long shadow across his face. Resting his chin on his hands, his expression remained as unchanging as black iron, concealing his inner thoughts. Secretary Lan Xinqing approached and murmured, Zhang Yi's concealment from you is becoming increasingly obvious. Zhu Zheng shot him a glance. If you had his power, you could be just as arrogant. Lan Xinqing faltered, but Zhu Zheng only sighed deeply. There's no choice. He's now the backbone of the Jiangnan region. Since the Great Mutation era began, this world has become a realm ruled by the mutant. The only power we can rely on, the Reaper of Love, is actually highly unstable and cannot be used recklessly. Lan Xinqing couldn't deny this point. Forget about Epsilon. Back then, a mere group of mutants led by Gao Changkong had nearly breached the Operations Command Center and eliminated Zhu Zheng, the Supreme Commander of the Jiangnan region. We need our own Epsilon. Lan Xinqing declared gravely. Zhu Zheng's lips curved slightly. He rose from his chair. Let's go. We'll check out the experimental center. The two descended the stairs. Li Lingshua's research department was located directly below the Operations Command Center, a super-military facility buried 200 meters underground. Zhu Zheng's arrival was met with routine familiarity by the laboratory personnel inside. A female researcher with shoulder-length hair immediately approached to assist them. Commander. Zhu Zheng nodded. How is the experiment progressing? The researcher stepped aside to clear a path. Proceeding according to the original plan. At the current pace, we expect Subject 238 to achieve breakthrough. Zhu Zheng followed her down a long, narrow white corridor. Finally, they arrived at an immense laboratory. Li Lingxua, the head of the research department, stood before a glass window in her white lab coat, her expression grave as she gazed intently ahead. Over a dozen researchers bustled around her, operating their respective workbenches and instruments. Li Lingxua stared forward, her gaze focused and almost mesmerized, as if beholding the most magnificent creation of her career. Zhu Zheng approached slowly, hands behind his back, and stood beside her. He gazed at the massive transparent container with an exclaiming gaze. What do you think? She's an exceptional test subject, isn't she? Only then did Li Lingxua notice Zhu Zheng's presence. She replied simply, she was perfect from the start. We merely unlocked the potential within her genes. It's hard to imagine how powerful she'd be now if we'd cultivated the original mother specimen. Zhu Zheng felt a pang of emotion too. He still wondered, what if Yuan Kongyue hadn't died at Zhang Yi's hands? What would she be like today? But that unstable religious leader was certainly harder to control than this incomplete replica made with ice soul. Before them stood a colossal apparatus over 10 meters tall. Within its central transparent cylindrical glass vessel, a young girl floated motionless. Her long hair drifted like seaweed through the green liquid, resembling a white fish sealed within a seafood can. Li Lingxua suddenly waved her hand to the side and declared decisively, begin. All the experimenters immediately began frantically operating the equipment at their stations. Rumble. On both sides of the laboratory, heavy metal plates slowly rose, revealing dozens of smaller transparent containers behind them. though several sizes smaller than Zhuyu's container, each held a human body submerged in the green liquid. Men and women, young and old, all lay in a state of unconsciousness. With a sweeping gesture from Li Lingshua's large hand. Pfft! The human inside one transparent vessel instantly shattered into a mist of blood. The plasma completely saturated the green liquid, blending it into an indescribable hue. Pfft! In an instant, every human within the transparent vessels was obliterated in this manner. Behind Zhuyu, the bulky machine extended dozens of pipes like octopus tentacles. They began greedily sucking the substance from the vessels, ultimately injecting it into Zhuyu's own container. Watching the monstrous machine begin its operation, channeling the substance extracted from dozens of people into the container holding Zhuyu, Zhu Zheng's expression grew excited. Isn't this a truly magnificent creation? Using countless lowly providers to sustain a supreme being. It perfectly aligns with the logic of biological populations. And compared to killing the mutants and absorbing their origin, this method of squeezing them alive yields a much higher conversion rate. This is simply brilliant. Zhu Zheng's smile gradually twisted into something sinister, his eyes gleaming with a touch of obsessive madness. Before long, I too shall possess my very own epsilon. 2 days later. Yang Xinxin found Zhang Yi, presenting him with the first decoded intelligence report. I've finished compiling the Epic of King Geezer. Brother, you'll definitely find this information fascinating. Yang Xinxin sat demurely beside Zhang Yi. She smiled, gazing at him cheerfully. Zhang Yi, dressed casually in loungewear, sat cross-legged on the sofa and opened the files Yang Xinxin had transmitted with keen interest. As he scanned the documents before him, his eyes soon filled with a bright light, accompanied by profound shock. The sensation of the lingering doubts that had long clouded his heart gradually dissipating filled him with immense relief. Fascinating. Truly fascinating. According to the Epic of King Geezer and Padmasambhava had engaged in numerous dialogues specifically addressing the power of tantric faith and extraordinary beings. The so-called reincarnation was actually a power possessed by King Geezer. It was not true rebirth, but rather a belief, a means to select suitable successors in future generations through the faith of Tantric Buddhism. This also explains why Zhugo and Luozhua could ultimately merge, both channeling the power of Tantric faith. During the decisive battle with Prince Anlet, the Undertaker declared him to be Padmasambhava. This likely stemmed from Padmasambhava's assistance to King Geezer in subduing the demon realm long ago. The implication was that Zhang Yi was his destined, ideal ally. For a top-tier ability user, it is indeed possible to pass one's convictions to future generations through bloodlines or faith. Zhang Yi murmured to himself. Yang Xinxin sat cross-legged beside him, her little feet lightly. The most fascinating parts recorded here, I think, are about supernatural abilities and the 9-story demon tower. She helped Zhang Yi flip through the complex documents, locating the relevant pages before pointing to the text for him to read. In the understanding of King Geezer and Padmasambhava, extraordinary beings are born from vast tribes. The larger the tribe, the more powerful the collective belief it generates. This power ultimately converges upon one individual, making them the chosen child of destiny. Her eyes darted as she continued, back in the snowy plateau, the demon kingdom ruled the land, enslaving its people. King Geezer emerged as destiny would have it. He was born from the call of this collective belief, endowed with power strong enough to overthrow the demon kingdom. Hearing Yang Xinxin's words, Zhang Yi couldn't help but think of the extraordinary beings he'd encountered. But after the apocalypse, is humanity's belief strong enough to produce so many mutants? He shook his head. I may not understand mutants, but I know humans. Their only belief is survival. They wouldn't pray for others to grow powerful and then come to destroy them. This is fundamentally different from the chaotic ancient times. People are more rational now, and more selfish. Yang Xinxin nodded with a smile. Brother, I think so too. So, she pointed at the 9-story demon tower. In their descriptions of it, I caught a glimpse of something. Zhang Yi looked closely. The records contained descriptions of the 9-story demon tower by King Geezer and Padmasambhava. Its origins trace back to the Demon Kingdom era. The Demon Kingdom's high priest, acting on demonic will, commanded the construction of the tower, consecrating it with flesh and blood. The most prized offerings were humans possessing extraordinary talents. Blood was poured as nourishment, skin and bones were fashioned into instruments to please the demon gods. Bloody slaughter demonstrated devotion to the demonic deities. In short, the construction of every 9-story demon tower was accompanied by countless deaths. Xinxin, what are your thoughts? Zhang Yi inquired. Yang Xinxin's gaze grew deep, and the smile at the corners of her mouth deepened. My guess is human hearts. She stroked her chest, now noticeably flatter. Brother, do you remember what Zhugo told you when we parted? Zhang Yi recalled that moment, murmuring, this world has never known reincarnation, nor any power of faith. What exists is only the human heart. He suddenly understood. So you're saying these so-called supernatural abilities come from the power of the human spirit? Yang Xinxin replied, that's a bit metaphysical and hard to explain. But we can consider it this way, humans possess a certain special energy. In individuals, this power is very weak. Of course, given humanity's vast population, there will always be exceptional individuals born with more potent special energy. They are the natural-born mutants. In the past, we called them supernatural beings. Zhang Yi nodded, his understanding gradually deepening. So, the 9-story demon tower, or the purple pyramid in the underground world I once saw, are actually energy collectors. Their purpose is to massively harvest this special energy from humans. Therefore, they require bloody sacrifices, using slaughter to release the energy from people. As he sorted through these words, the truth of the matter suddenly became clear. Zhang Yi abruptly looked up, his eyes widening in surprise as he addressed Yang Xinxin. This explains why, after the apocalypse struck, so many mutants suddenly appeared in the world. Because the more people die, the more of their special energy escapes. This creates a massive energy field. And when others absorb this power, they become mutants. Moreover, as long as the apocalypse persists, the more people die, the higher the probability of survivors mutating, and the stronger they become. A mysterious smile touched Yang Xinxin's lips. She curled up on the sofa, hugging her knees, and turned her head to look at Zhang Yi. Brother, you're very smart. This explanation mostly fits everything we've encountered so far. But the truth probably isn't that simple. We need more intelligence to see the whole picture clearly. The deeper Zhang Yi's conversation with Yang Xinxin went, the more he felt a sense of awe towards supernatural abilities and the emergence of the apocalypse. At first, he thought it was all just a series of coincidences. But the more he understood this world, the broader the expanse of his own ignorance became, and his sense of awe grew uncontrollably. A great scholar once said, human understanding is like a circle. Within the circle lies comprehension, beyond it lies the unknown. Thus, the more knowledge one acquires, the more profoundly one realizes their own ignorance. Resting his chin in his hand, Zhang Yi reflected on his recent experiences and suddenly formed a bold hypothesis. If the ancient civilization beneath the earth could harness and absorb the unique energies within the human body, using that power to create the spirit of sacrifice and the source of God, then could humans do the same? He looked at Yang Xinxin. Consider this, even a backward civilization like Nash Kingdom, which neglected scientific advancement, possessed the 9-story demon tower to gather energy. With our current technology, it shouldn't be too difficult to achieve. Yang Xinxin gazed at Zhang Yi, her pupils shimmering with an eerie glow like dark gems. Brother, that possibility certainly exists. And by the time we realize this, perhaps those factions wielding greater power have already begun similar experiments. But do you understand the prerequisite for that? Zhang Yi's thoughts drifted to the past. Even in the earliest days of the apocalypse, the West Mountain Base in Tianhai City had initiated human experimentation programs. And now, 2.5 years into the apocalypse? A chill ran through Zhang Yi's heart. Suppose psychic abilities are actually life energy. To harvest that energy, massive slaughter would be necessary. Yang Xinxin nodded. that possibility cannot be ruled out. Brother, and we are all growing stronger, pushing ourselves to the limit to face the unknown future. But every survivor who has made it this far is also fighting desperately to stay alive. And they, too, are constantly striving to become stronger. Zhang Yi swallowed hard. Even those once beyond my wildest dreams of reaching are still growing stronger. Take the Hades Gatekeeper, for instance. Or take the White Dragon. After their analysis, the two concluded this world remained fraught with danger. However, they possessed no concrete evidence for these thoughts, merely speculations forming in their minds. Yet once the possibility existed, they had to confront it with everything they had. For if they were wrong, there was only one outcome: sooner or later, they would be annihilated by an even mightier being. And that being needn't even be Zhang Yi's enemy. Any trivial reason could suffice to erase them. Zhang Yi rubbed his temples. Thankfully, we've never slacked off. This time, we've gained enough to create another Epsilon-level mutant. And with the Earth Centipede farm, I can make the Delta-level mutants around me grow ever stronger. Someday, I might even assemble a squad entirely composed of Captain-level mutants. The only regret is that we still don't know what those powerful races dwelling in the underground world truly are. They possess such immense strength, yet why do they choose to live underground? All this would remain unknown until the data obtained from Nash Kingdom was decrypted. Just then, Zhou Qi entered the living room and smiled at Zhang Yi. The surgery is ready. When can we proceed with that prisoner? Zhang Yi slapped his forehead upon hearing this. I almost forgot about that guy. The expedition to the southwest region had yielded significant gains, including one living specimen. Bowser, the Green Knight of the Round Table Knights. His ability index wasn't exceptionally high, merely a Delta-level mutant. Yet his ability was exceedingly rare, a plant-based power that allowed him to transform into a weapon. The power of the sword in the tree could even amplify based on the user's skill level. Zhang Yi had already made up his mind: turn Bowser into a mindless vegetable and keep him close for his own use. To achieve this, erasing his self-awareness completely without harming his body, he could only rely on Zhou Qi. Zhang Yi stood up, pulling Yang Xinxin to her feet as well. But before that, I need to understand the current status of the Knights of the Round Table and Britannia. With Yang Xinxin present, they would naturally extract every last bit of information from Bowser before proceeding. Intelligence, after all, was one of the most crucial resources in this post-apocalyptic world. The trio descended to the basement and opened a heavy metal door. Bowser had been injected with Compound 3 and was tightly bound to an alloy chair with restraints. As the door opened, Bowser slowly opened his eyes. He shot Zhang Yi a mocking glance. Chaos, I will answer absolutely none of your questions. Zhang Yi, huh? Did I ask you anything? Bowser thrust his chest out defiantly. I am a Knight of the Round Table, honored and true. You may kill me, but you'll never pry my mouth open. Zhang Yi rubbed his nose. Then I won't ask. He turned to Yang Xinxin beside him. Xinxin, you go. Yang Xinxin smiled as she raised her right hand toward Bowser, summoning the Angel of Desire to appear behind her, its massive 6 wings unfurling. The next moment, Bowser's eyes filled with rapturous adoration as he gazed at Yang Xinxin. My queen, do with this filthy, foolish pig as you please. Zhang Yi immediately had Yang Xinxin interrogate Bowser for crucial intelligence regarding the Knights of the Round Table and Britannia. Bowser revealed everything he knew, leaving nothing out. After hearing it all, Zhang Yi was deeply shaken. Britannia, once hailed as the empire where the sun never sets, had dominated the world for centuries as a mighty nation. Even after its decline, the legacy of its long-standing power remained. A crucial aspect of this legacy lay in the cultural sphere. According to Bowser, long before the apocalypse struck, they had amassed knowledge of esoteric realms by plundering artifacts from across the globe. This knowledge had forewarned them of the impending apocalypse. Moreover, from Bowser, Zhang Yi heard a new term. The Day of the Fall. This phrase had been deciphered from an ancient stone slate discovered by the East Barodo Corporation during their colonization of Brahma. The Nakul stone slate. Yang Xinxin murmured softly. I've heard of its existence. They say it's over 1,000,000 years old, inscribed in a script belonging to no civilization of today. Bowser was no scholar, and much of his intelligence came from fragmented bits of information gathered from others. Yet these fragments alone were enough to spark Zhang Yi's boundless imagination. The power of a nation is truly formidable. Even now that I've become a Black Chariot-level mutant, I still fall far short of them in this regard. Zhang Yi murmured this reflection. Unfortunately, the Xinjiang region authorities were unlikely to grant him access to such intelligence anytime soon. Yang Xinxin, however, remarked to Zhang Yi, in this field, Huaxiu Kingdom lags considerably behind Britannia. After all, many ancient artifacts and texts have long since vanished. Quite a few are even preserved in Britannian museums. Zhang Yi's eyebrows shot up. He shot a cold smile at Bowser. Looks like we should make a trip to Britannia when we get the chance, to reclaim what belongs to us. Bowser continued to answer Yang Xinxin's questions with a respectful tone. Britannia's national strength was formidable. Though its territory was modest, its cultural depth was truly immense. Thanks to thorough preparations, their losses after the apocalypse remained within acceptable limits. Those who perished were mostly commoners their upper echelons had already intended to purge. As for the reserves of the Reaper of Love, they were no weaker than Huaxiu kingdoms. This venerable global power now possessed the strength to stand firmly among the world's nations. Though not quite matching Huaxiu Kingdom, it still ranked among the top few. Then what about the Knights of the Round Table? The deputy captain is Lancelot. Now, tell me the details of the other members in your team. Bowser began introducing the other members of the Round Table. The Round Table Knights comprised 13 members in total. Only 6 had come to the Snowy Plateau this time. The other 7 were, the leader, King Arthur, Arthur Pendragon, Holy Knight, Percival, Steel Knight, Kai, Sun Knight, Gawain, Morning Knight, Tristan, Violet Silver Knight, Bedivere, Loyal Knight, Gaheris. Additionally, the kingdom possesses another formidable entity not affiliated with the Order, whose status ranks second only to King Arthur. The court magician, Merlin. These individuals, combined with the 6 from the southwest region, constitute Britannia's most formidable mutants today. Zhang Yi inquired earnestly, and what of their strength? Bowser replied, the top 6 knights, excluding Deputy Captain Lancelot, collectively surpass our own power. As for Merlin, his power surpasses even Lancelot's. I've only heard this through rumors, for a few months ago, Lancelot challenged Merlin and ended in defeat. Zhang Yi frowned upon hearing Bowser make no mention of King Arthur. Then what of your king? What level of power does he possess? A look of awe flashed across Bowser's face. The king's power has reached a level beyond my imagination. He has led us into the subterranean realms twice already, successfully retrieving the hidden treasures beneath. During one mission, Lancelot sought to spar with the king. The king struck just once, and defeated Lancelot. Zhang Yi's gaze grew profound. Britannia's strongest warrior, backed by the resources of a mighty kingdom, must possess terrifying strength. At that time, Lancelot hadn't yet obtained the origin of Qili Duhan. For King Arthur to defeat him with a single strike, ignoring elemental advantages, his ability index would have to be at least 25,000 points. Just as Zhang Yi pondered how he might fare against King Arthur should they ever meet, Bowser's next words left him momentarily stunned. King Arthur, he is the pride of our Levant family. He is the brother I hold in highest esteem. Bowser's expression was intensely emotional, his voice reverent as if speaking of a saint when mentioning King Arthur's name. Zhang Yi snapped his head up to stare at him. Oh? You're King Arthur's brother? The 12 knights of the Round Table, including King Arthur and Merlin, naturally did not bear these names in reality. They were all named after legendary figures, much like Zhang Yi's codename, Chaos. Bowser nodded, explaining that both he and King Arthur hailed from the Levant family. No wonder, no wonder. Zhang Yi recalled Lancelot's peculiar gaze when he insisted on taking Bowser away. He instantly understood what Lancelot had meant back then. Zhou Qi asked gently, since his brother is Britannia's strongest warrior, should we send him back? After all, provoking such a figure could cause trouble later. Given Zhang Yi's past temperament, he would never lightly provoke someone he couldn't handle. This time, however, Zhang Yi shook his head without hesitation. No. I won't send this guy back. Zhou Qi looked at Zhang Yi with surprise. Zhang Yi's gaze remained calm as he addressed Bowser. This time, it's the Britannia scum who've trespassed onto Huashu Kingdom territory. If I return him, I wouldn't just be disgracing myself, I'd be disgracing our ancestors too. Bowser gazed at Zhang Yi, his face etched with sorrow. Zhou Qi and Yang Xinxin both nodded in agreement. Certain matters demanded no compromise, that was a fundamental principle. The final question concerned which secret realms Britannia had discovered. Half a planet away, Zhang Yi remained unaware of events unfolding in Euro. Bowser replied, we uncovered the ruins of Atlantis. The king personally led our team in investigating the crypt beneath Notre Dame Cathedral in Paradis. And the outcome? Bowser sighed. Humanity's current capabilities remain too insignificant when confronting those unknown entities. He further admitted that Nash Kingdom, the underground civilization beneath the southwest region, was the weakest he'd encountered. Even with terrifying entities like Prince Anlet, they could still glimpse a sliver of hope for victory. Yet on the previous two occasions, even King Arthur nearly perished. That crushing sense of helpless despair was something he never wished to experience again. Still, those narrow escapes had yielded substantial rewards, including the source of the gods. The source of the gods. Underground civilizations don't seem to value such things. The Nash Kingdom even uses it as decoration. They must sense the unique power within it. Is there a reason for this? Zhang Yi murmured curiously to himself. No further useful intelligence could be squeezed from Bowser. Zhang Yi waved to Zhou Qi. Proceed with the procedure. All I need is a sword in human form. Zhou Qi nodded with a smile. I guarantee that, aside from losing his ability to think for himself, he will retain all normal physiological functions. He will even be able to advance his supernatural abilities to the same level as before. That way, your weapon can keep growing stronger. Upon hearing Zhang Yi's plan, Bowser turned ashen-faced with fear. He hastily pleaded for mercy. No! Don't kill me! I'll be obedient. I can follow you from now on. Big brother, give me a chance. Zhang Yi shook his head. Forget it. We're not exactly close. You're better off dead. Ignoring Bowser's pitiful wails, he personally administered an injection to silence him. To prevent any complications, Zhang Yi summoned Uncle Yu to keep watch while Zhou Qi completed the procedure. Within half a day, Zhou Qi presented the living corpse, now merely a shell of a body, before him. Bowser was dead, yet his body remained alive, now a true vegetable. Zhou Qi smiled at Zhang Yi. By controlling his brain nerves with electrical currents, his body can still react like a normal person. The only drawback is the need for bowel movements, but that can be managed with nutrient injections. Zhang Yi nodded and immediately instructed Mu Yan to store Bowser within the shadow space. Despite being brain dead, he still couldn't be absorbed into the alternate dimension. Zhang Yi had begun to grasp the rules governing this determination. The factors determining whether someone could be actively absorbed likely involved supernatural abilities or human energy. Afterward, there was another crucial matter to attend to. Everyone knew Zhang Yi had obtained an additional portion of the source of God from Nash Kingdom. Though no one voiced it, every person coveted it. After all, the godlike power gained upon ascending to Epsilon had long since captivated them all. Yet no one spoke up first. Deep down, they understood Zhang Yi knew who was most deserving of it. Given the current situation, Lian Yu, as Zhang Yi's second-in-command of the martial combat faction, was undoubtedly the most qualified to receive the source of God. And indeed, Zhang Yi felt the same. After much deliberation, he ultimately chose Liang Yu over Lu Karen. Lu Karen's current ability index hadn't even reached 9,900 points. Even if given the source of God, it would take her a long time to gradually break through. Liang Yu was different. She was already operating at her limit, and her development level was exceptionally high. Given the chance, her ascent to Epsilon would be astonishingly swift. Thus, within a short time, Zhang Yi's personal team would boast 3 Epsilon-level mutants. This was an outrageous figure. If word spread, it would likely make the entire world envious. Though currently, quantitative changes hadn't yet triggered qualitative leaps. The newly promoted Flower and Quasi-Epsilon Liang Yu combined still couldn't match the strength of a single 18,000 plus white chariot. But the most crucial factor was the future. As long as they lived, as long as they kept fighting, they could keep growing stronger. As for the remaining 1/3, he hadn't wasted it either, instead giving it to Lu Karen. Both women received the source of God Zhang Yi gave them, their eyes brimming with excitement. Liang Yu said little, her gaze resolute as she departed to absorb the source of God's energy, striving to break through the constraints of her gene lock as swiftly as possible. Lu Karen, overcome with emotion, wept uncontrollably. "Brother, this is too precious. I'm afraid I'm not worthy of it." Zhang Yi addressed Lu Karen, "Though you haven't directly participated in battle, none of us can do without you. The weapons you crafted, the armors you forged, the intelligent devices you developed, every step of the way, they've provided us immense support. That's why everyone wants you to grow stronger. It benefits every single one of us." Lu Karen clenched the fragment of the source of God in her hand and gave Zhang Yi a firm nod. "Brother, I won't let you down." Watching the girl and woman walk away, Zhang Yi thought of something. After a moment's consideration, he decided against saying it aloud. "Perhaps not everyone faces circumstances like mine." Turning away, he watched the snow still falling thickly outside the window, instinctively rubbing his temples hard. He had grown stronger. After ascending to the black chariot, he was gradually absorbing Li's origin power. According to his calculations, once Li's power was fully absorbed, his ability index would likely reach 22,000 points. This figure thrilled him immensely. Yet accompanying this growth came increasingly vivid dreams, whispered murmurs growing ever clearer. He was slowly learning to accept this peculiar state. The voices in his sleep remained incomprehensible, yet felt strangely comforting. As if a loved one whispered ancient tales softly into his ear. Xinjing. This was an extremely dark place, seemingly a cold, dry cavern. There was no wind, yet a low, rumbling breath echoed from the far end, like distant thunder. Light suddenly flickered in the distance as 2 figures slowly approached. In the darkness, a massive, sharp claw retracted slowly. Its fleeting glimpse conveyed a cold, iron-hard texture. The monster opened its eyes, revealing a pair of crimson orbs. Surprisingly, they held little murderous intent, instead carrying a hint of boredom, as if impatient with the visitors. The 2 approached, yet the light seemed unable to penetrate the darkness surrounding the creature, as if blocked by something that refused to be seen. The pair stood there, a man and a woman, one tall, one short. The man held a lantern, standing to the side. The woman, clad in a black cloak, gazed into the darkness and spoke slowly. "The signs beneath the surface are growing clearer. How much time do we have left?" The creature gazed at her lazily, then spoke slowly after a moment, in human language. "Time is running out. This is a cycle, and soon it will be your generation's turn." The woman frowned, her voice lingering with refusal to accept defeat. "Is there no way to avoid it?" A scoff escaped the creature's mouth. "Countless generations of humans have attempted this over endless ages. Yet every single one has failed. You must remember, the enemy you face is an existence beyond imagination. You don't even have the privilege to see him. How could you possibly stand against him?" This time, the woman fell silent for a long while. Though she had long suspected this answer, she still refused to accept such a cruel reality. She suddenly lifted her head, staring straight into the darkness. Not even the mightiest god, of your own kind has seen him? The one you speak of, Kagago.